What's up everyone? My name's Michael Taylor from 64 Motorsport. So in today's video, I'm going to be cleaning up the plastic fender liners and other bits and pieces which I've got to get ready to go back onto my E46 BMW. What I'm trying to do is get these looking as good as I can, given that they're about 20 years old and they've copped a fair bit of abuse from general driving, stone chips, tyre rubbing, all that sort of thing. I've already got the main ones done for the front fenders, I've got the rear ones done, and I'm just working on the lower front ones, which if you're familiar with E46 BMWs, they're the ones that cop the most abuse. Let me show you what I've been able to do on one, and then I'll walk you through the process in terms of how I achieved that result while I work on the second one. The one I'm working on now is the left-hand front, and I've already cleaned up the right-hand front. It looks pretty good. I mean, it's really knocked around. I'm going to have to address that with some adhesive or something like that. And yes, I'm going to have to replace them, but I'd rather spend the $150, $200 it's going to cost me to replace them on some other bits and pieces. So that's the way it's come up after I've cleaned it and polished it. And now I'm going to work on the left-hand side. And this is the left side lower fender liner. That hole there shouldn't be there. That's from tyre rub. It's copped a real flog on this left-hand side, and I can't do anything about that, but I can get it all cleaned up. First thing I've got to do is actually get all this dirt and grime off so I can actually see what the condition's like. So that's my plan. Let's get started, eh? The process here is relatively straightforward. It's just a matter of spraying on the detergent, giving it a good scrub, washing it off. Keep going with that process till you've got it as clean as you possibly can. Now pay particular attention to any hard to reach places because dirt will really build up in those. Now that I've got the bulk of the dirt and grime off, what I'm going to do is treat it with the wax and grease remover. Now the wax and grease remover should be safe on most plastics, but if you're unsure, just do a small test area and make a decision whether you're going to use it or not. What am I using? I'm using the Septone and I've not had a problem with it. Now that I've finished cleaning it up with the wax and grease remover, this is the way it should look. Now obviously I'm not going to be able to fix up these sort of pieces and this big hole, but I can tidy them up a bit, and what I'm going to do is wait till I get it back on the car before I trim these off. Just here there's a hole and that screws to another securing points underneath the car. So once I've got it all screwed in, then I'll get my Stanley knife and I'll trim up these sort of loose flappy bits where I can, but I won't do it just yet. What I'm trying to do is get an assessment into this sort of area here. So that area there has got a lot of little stone chips and things like that, and it feels quite rough. So what I want to do is smooth that out, and the way I'm going to do that is with my Scotch-Brite pads, and if that doesn't work then I'll use 2000 grit sandpaper. If that doesn't work, step it down until I get it as smooth as I want, and then I'll show you how I'm going to address the fine scratches that I've put into it. So now that I've scratched the hell out of it, what I'm going to do is tidy up those fine scratch marks before I polish it, and the way I'm going to do that is with my heat gun. I've finished sanding it and scrubbing it with the Scotch-Brite, so I've tidied up all the areas that I want to address, but I haven't wiped it down. I want to leave some of that fine plastic dust on the surface because I want it to melt to help to fill in some of those scratches. It's really important that you don't go overboard with the heat gun. You don't need it super hot. I put it on the lowest setting and then slowly build up the temperature rather than just blast it with the full strength. What I'm going to do is I'm going to heat it up, get that surface to start to soften, and that will tend to fill in the gaps. And then once I've done that, I've got a cloth, I'm going to rub it down and just help to smooth it out. You'll know when you've reached the right temperature because you'll start to see the plastic darken a little bit, and that's as the oils start to lift to the surface. It gives it a slightly darker look. So I don't know if you're going to be able to get a good enough look on camera. I'll just see if I can get my light a little bit closer to try and highlight the change in the plastic as it gets hotter. Anyway, let's see how we go. It's really important that you keep the heat gun moving. Don't concentrate too much in one spot at one time, because as you can see, this has got a preformed shape, and if I heat it up too much, when it cools, it's going to start to lose its shape. All you're trying to do is get that surface to melt and soften a little bit so we can then start to fill in the scratch marks. This is the area that I've done, and as you can see, that's the area I haven't done. You can see lots of little fine scratches. I've had success with this on scratches up to maybe 1 millimeter thick. If it's really fine scratches from like that 2000 grit sandpaper, they fill in super quick. Rub over it with like a buffing pad or something like that. Be careful because it's going to be stinking hot, and work that surface material and it'll start to fill in those scratches. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to polish it. It's basically a plastic polish, and that's going to just freshen it up and give it a nice new look. You don't need a lot of this stuff, just a little bit on your buffing pad and get rubbing. I find that working it into the plastic really helps and gives you the best result. So don't just wipe it on and then let it sit and then wipe it off. Give it a good rub in to help work it into, I guess, the surface of the plastic. Let it sit for a few minutes and then buff it off. I wipe it off in 2 stages. I have 2 cloths, a terry towel in and a microfiber cloth, and that seems to get the maximum shine. You don't want a lot left on the surface because that'll just attract dirt and dust. Give it a really good rub when you're removing it. And that's the final result. So I'm going to keep going with this and give you a look once I've got it all finished. Now I'm really happy with the result from that. Bear in mind the condition that it started with, and it's had 20 years of constant abuse. I was never really going to be able to fully recover those, and there's still going to be some patching and repairs I'm going to have to do, but I'll do that once it's on the car and I can see how it's fitting, and then I can trim it up accordingly. What I did want to do, and which I think we've achieved, is get them at least looking black and shiny and get rid of some of those smaller scratches and small stone chips. Now just remember, when you're using the heat gun, go easy with it. Don't try and heat it all up at once. Slowly build up the temperature so you can keep an eye on what the plastic's doing, and as soon as you start to see that that surface colour is changing and that it's starting to soften, then you can ease up and start massaging it with a cloth to fill in those scratches. If you've got any small scratches on the bottom of your door panels and things like that, you can use that heat treatment for that as well. So I hope you got something out of it. I've enjoyed putting this quick video together for you. If you've liked the video, don't forget to like, and if you'd like to see more content about BMW ownership, maintenance and my performance upgrades, then subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell so you get notified each time I upload a new video. But until we meet again, look after yourselves, stay safe, and TTFN.